Hello and welcome back everyone to the video series dedicated show on MTV that will sometimes give you the goosies. That's right, we're talking about The Challenge, Season 37, Spies, Lies, and Allies, Episode 10. Now we have a lot to unpack with the new format, with the new rules, but before we can get to any of that, let's start off where last episode left off, and that was everybody coming back to the Challenge house after Corey and Bettina won against Jeremiah and Amber, and Bettina is excited to get her first elimination win where Corey has revenge on his brain, mainly towards Kyle. And then some of the competitors are wondering what's the next step, what TJ has up his sleeve. They're trying to figure it out. Tori is talking with CT. Tori thinks it's going to be a solo game where CT is talking about how they're probably going to just reset the partners. Something is going to happen at the mission. Maybe it's going to be like a performance-based grade system to however you finish in this week's mission will determine who you're partnered up with. And upon hearing these two theories front and center so early on in the episode, I go, that's not going to happen. Neither one of these are going to be the case, especially when we get to the actual mission where TJ says no pairs, and then we have a confessional from Casey going, oh, I knew it was going to be individual. It instantly pokes into my brain going, okay, the challenge wouldn't just automatically throw something up to where it would be like, oh yeah, this game is predictable. Everyone figured it out. But we'll get more into that as we delve further into this review and recap. We move into a conversation between Bettina and Priscilla talking about their motivation in the game. Why do they fight? Why do they want to win this money? Bettina talks about how she's playing for all the women who ever grew up in a small town. And then Priscilla talks about her mother and how she is her rock. Not only her rock, but her family's rock, as her and her aunt, the mother's sister, takes care of all the family, all the kids, as they were a family of 7 at one point, but then all of the siblings had passed away, and now Priscilla's mother and her aunt takes care of everybody, and Priscilla wants to win that money to help support her mother, to help her, because she's helped so many people within her family. So it was a really touching moment that Priscilla had with Bettina, and then we move on to a webcam call that Amanda had with her son. So then my challenge brain works in a way that I'm trying to guess what's going to happen between these two women. I'm thinking that they could possibly going into an elimination against each other because we're getting a ton of Amanda early on in this episode, more so than we've gotten in the past 9 episodes, and then we're getting a lot of Priscilla and why she's playing the game. I just felt like, okay, so they're going to face each other in the elimination against each other. That's what's working through my brain as we're moving along through this episode. Also, we see Big T, who has very strong emotions and feelings towards Logan. However, they're not reciprocated by Logan, and Logan friend zones Big T in this episode. We then move on to this week's mission where TJ says no more pairs. He leaves it at that, and then he gets into divulging the rules for this week's mission called Diamond Dash. Now, this is going to be played in multiple rounds, but the first round, everyone is going to be running into the woods, have to grab a sledgehammer that is underneath this rocks and rubble. Once you get your sledgehammer, you're going to keep on running until you get to one of 3 stations. You can pick whichever station you want out of the 3, but it's first come, first serve, and there's only a certain number of spots in each station. So once it fills up, you're done. You have to move on to another station. Once you complete your assignment, you'll get a diamond, then you'll run to the next checkpoint. TJ blows that horn, everybody is running into the woods, grabs their sledgehammer, and we see the 3 different assignments. One is you have to use binoculars to find numbers that are very far away, to get your combination to a safe, to open it up. Then another assignment is fitting a box through a hole in the wall. If you can get it through a hole, you can open it up, and there will be a code to the safe that you need. And then the last one is scraping off paint off of this panel to get your numbers and your code. If you can do that, you get your diamond, and then you head off to the next checkpoint. Easily, the fitting the box through the hole was the best assignment that you wanted. It seemed to be the easiest, as we saw Nelson get through this checkpoint first, and he was the first one to checkpoint 1. Corey, Emmy, and Priscilla were really quick out of this as well, along with CT. The worst assignment was indeed scratching out the paint. I was thinking, okay, maybe it was because many of the players that were coming in late had to go to that one because the binoculars filled up right away. Then we moved over to the box, which it seemed to be that one was what everyone was gravitating towards. So ipso facto, a lot of the players that were coming from behind from getting their sledgehammer had to go to the panel to scratch it off. But when listening into the aftermath, Amanda and Big T both agreed that that was the worst one, that it was like paint. They couldn't really chip it off. They were losing their nails as they were doing it. It was absolutely the worst. So as I mentioned, Nelson was the first person done overall. He runs to the next checkpoint where we see 3 tables with 3 different colors on it, meaning we're gonna have 3 teams of 6 with 3 men and 3 women making up each team. So you have to figure out strategically who you want your team to be made up of. Nelson is the first one there. He puts his diamond in the blue or the sapphire. Then Josh shows up and he tells Josh, hey, go to the emerald or the green one. And then Corey shows up and he puts his diamond on the pink table or ruby. Now everybody's getting through their assignments. I'm just gonna jump into naming the teams and who is on each team. We're gonna start off with ruby, which was Corey, Emmy, Priscilla, Kyle, Logan, and Big T. The emerald team is Josh, Devin, Emmanuel, Casey, Tori, Nani, and the sapphire team is Nelson, Ed, CT, Ashley, Bettina, and Amanda. We're gonna see in round 2 where they have to run over and retrieve their diamond by putting debris and rubble into a crate to then seesaw the cage up to grab their diamond and bring it back to their podium. Ruby is completely out of sorts. They're not communicating well with each other. I don't know what you really have to communicate with in this mission. You just gotta break rocks. Somebody has to break rocks, bring the rocks over to Priscilla, and then dump them into the cage. I don't know how tough that is, but they're struggling. Emmy is getting frustrated because they're not communicating well. Sapphire is working with each other pretty well, but it is the Emerald team who Devin comes up with the strategy that, okay, we can put the bigger rubble on top of the cage, weigh it down, then everybody can start bringing over rubble, putting it into the crates, and then you just gotta wipe off the top, and hopefully it stays there, because if it stays there, then you could just run over to your diamond, grab it, and run it back to your podium, which they do. Emerald wins into the agency. In the nomination, they're gonna have the power to send in any woman from either the Ruby team or the Sapphire team into the elimination. Just to give my quick thoughts on the format change of everyone being from pairs to teams, I think it's interesting. I'm kind of glad that it wasn't solo, just for the sole fact that it wasn't as predictable, at least to me. I know a lot of people in my review and recap of last week were able to pick up on maybe it is going to be teams of 3, that there was the cutthroat symbol at the elimination last episode. I wish we had teams earlier on. I think that would have made things interesting. I don't want to go too heavy into my opinions on the format change and everything, because I'm going to get into that in Tiny Table Talk tomorrow. So let's get back into everyone heading off to the club and doing the party scene. And this is where we see everybody getting into their groups, getting into their teams, and having some team meetings while at the club. Emerald is celebrating. Sapphire is trying to figure out what Emerald is going to do and who they could possibly throw into the elimination. Nelson is talking and saying, okay, if they're going to take a big shot, they'll probably send in Ashley, but it's still too early. They probably won't do that. Then we move on to the Ruby team, who is talking about how are they going to get better? How are they going to work better as a team? And Emmy brings up communication. They talk about how they agree that they should communicate better, which is good communication. So they're starting out pretty well. We move back to the house where Big T and Logan were sharing a bed, it looked like, and then Logan just gets up and then moves to the floor in the middle of the night, really putting his foot down that they are friend zoned, that they are not going to be pushing forward with the relationship or anything to that effect, which we hear from Big T saying that, hey, I'm single in the house now. Also, the next day we see the Emerald team gathering together in the yard for a picnic, trying to figure out who they want to throw into the elimination and make the house vote. They talk about Bettina and Emmy, saying that they're off the table. They're not going to throw them in because they could be anchors for their respective teams. If Emmy flies off the handle during a mission, or Bettina, they deem her as the weakest, so they want to keep them on their teams as they think that they could be anchors. So it's going to be boiled down to either Priscilla or Ashley. Do we take the big move and take the big shot and swing for the fences with voting in Ashley? Because Nani, Tori, and Casey don't want Ashley anywhere near the final, so why not take a shot at her early on? But also, we have Priscilla, who is a strong player, who is a smart player, and she was the one that threw the whole wrench in the vet truce, and she's still a rookie. Maybe they're going to want to keep up this vet truce a little bit longer and send in Priscilla yet again. We're left on the cliffhanger on whether they are going to vote in Priscilla or Ashley as we move into this week's nominations, where Corey kicks things off talking about team unity for the Ruby team and how is Kyle going to come in wearing a green shirt instead of red. We can't even wear the same colored t-shirts. All the women on the Sapphire team and the Ruby team plead their case. One by one, Emmy reads a speech which I have to say is reminiscent to what happened last season in Double Agents when Fessy read his speech, but I think Emmy did much better and it was much more well received. I mean, CT was eating it up. He was just like all smiles. In his confessional, he was talking about how much he likes Emmy, and Emmy is still calling him Uncle CT, so there's still a very strong connection there. We move on to the house vote where Priscilla is the Emerald team's vote. She is going to be thrown into this week's elimination, and we don't even get like house drama or house conversations in between the nominations to meeting TJ at the lair. We move to the lair where TJ has Priscilla come down, join him on the lair grounds, and then he drops the bomb saying that, hey, your opponent is going to be chosen by you. Priscilla can choose anybody from the losing teams of Ruby or Sapphire. Emerald is completely safe, but she can choose her own opponent, which is reminiscent to the Challenge All-Stars format, which I actually really like this point where you can choose whoever you want to go up against. You have to call somebody out. It changes a lot of different strategies now moving forward, but I'll get into that, like I mentioned, in Tiny Table Talk tomorrow. So Priscilla can choose any woman from either Sapphire or Ruby. She decides she's going to take a swing and take a shot at a champ. If she's going to go out, she wants to either take out somebody who is a strong player or she's going to be taken out by a strong player. And so she chooses Ashley Millionaire Mitchell to go up against in this week's elimination called Seek and Destroy. Now in this elimination, it looks as though that the lair grounds has like a gopher problem or an ant problem, but in reality, there are tires that have been buried all over. You have to unearth these tires, all 8 of them, and once you do that, you have to run to go see some flashing lights to know the order on where you put your colored tires. Once you have the right order, you win, stay in this game, and you get to make a decision. TJ blows his horn, and Priscilla and Ashley are off, going to find these tires, going to unbury them. Ashley has a very good strategy of like just using her whole body to take off the top sand because you have so much extra sand on top of these tires that it's just better to get it moved fast and quickly as possible. This elimination was fine. Like, I think it would have been fun if it was just the 2 women going up against each other, but later on, when we have her final words in the game, Priscilla is talking about how I went up against a 2-time champ, I lost against her, but it wasn't just her going up against Ashley. She was going up against the whole house, as we're gonna see. Ashley takes a very commanding lead, getting all of her 8 tires, while Priscilla only had 5. So she had all 8 of her tires. She goes to meet the flashing lights. She finds out that the lights are not in sequential order. They're flashing all different times. Ashley is then having to say the colors out loud to help her remember, but once she says them out loud, all the vets on the stairs just start saying the colors for her. So she didn't even have to remember her colors. She just had to say them out loud. Everybody was just saying them over and over and over again to help Ashley. Like, this was just a huge blowout where Ashley was able to win before Priscilla even had all of her tires out. No, I think mainly the detriment to Priscilla in this elimination was her strategy with just using her legs, where Ashley had a much better strategy, it seemed. But when you look at it, she was getting a lot of help from the vets. I know it was just an easy color coordination of just getting the colors right, so she could have had all the time in the world while Priscilla was still trying to get her 8 tires. But when the end result is everybody was just helping Ashley, it was kind of lackluster in my opinion. But Ashley wins her first elimination win since War of the Worlds 2 when she won against Nani in the final elimination. Priscilla is leaving the game, but keywords from TJ saying that I'm positive that we're going to see you back on the challenge, meaning Priscilla is going to be back on the challenge either next season or very, very soon, which I'm very excited to hear. Now it's up to Ashley. She has a decision to make. she can stay with her Sapphire team, or she can swap places from somebody on the Ruby team to be on the Ruby team, or even swap with somebody to be on the Emerald team. Even the agency isn't safe. So if you win an elimination, regardless if you're in the agency or not, you can have your place swapped with somebody who wins the elimination. Ashley gives it some thought. She's definitely not going to the Ruby team, but ultimately, she is going to stay with her Sapphire team. She loves CT. She loves Amanda. They're both on the Sapphire team. The Sapphire team worked pretty well, and I'm sure she doesn't want to rock the boat too early. But before we leave, we get a little thought into Kyle's mindset, where he's like, okay, I don't like my Ruby team. They don't like me. I want to be on the Emerald team. I've said I wanted to be on the Emerald team like all episode. So now he's thinking, if possibly I can get into the elimination, get a good matchup to where I can win, maybe I can then move myself over to the Emerald team and be sitting pretty. That, I think, is a foreshadowing to see what's going to happen, but there's a lot more strategy now happening with the 3-team format, with all the format changes and rule changes and twists in the game. We're going to have to see how that's all going to be panning out, but that is it for this episode. What did you think about this episode? Let me know that in the comment section below. What did you think about this episode? What did you think about the mission, the elimination, the switch up from pairs to the 3-team format? What do you think about being able to swap teams at the end of an elimination? Let me know anything and everything you thought about in this episode down in the comment section below. Join me for Tiny Table Talk this week, where I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the new team format and my unbridled opinions about them. Also, I'm going to be doing a mid-season trailer breakdown, as well as getting to some comments from this week's video. So please drop down any and all comments that you have about this episode, about this season, down in the comment section below, as I will be featuring a good amount of comments in tomorrow's Tiny Table Talk. But that is it for this video. While you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button. I'm back really soon with more Challenge 37 content, more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.